Judas and James, the sons of Alpheus, were twins living and fishing near Urantia. They were married, 26 years old, with Judas having 2 children and James 3. They were the 9th and 10th apostles brought into the group, and they were chosen by John and James Zebedee. Little need be said of Judas and James Alpheus, humble fishermen whose simplicity reflected the kingdom's universal embrace. They loved Jesus, and he loved them, but they almost never asked him questions. Judas and James Alpheus could not understand much of what Jesus taught, and pretty much stayed out of the religious debates that went on between the other apostles. That said, they rejoiced in their inclusion among such a noble fellowship of apostles. Judas and James were almost identical in mentality, appearance, and spiritual perception. What is said of one can be recorded of the other. Andrew tasked Judas and James Alpheus with overseeing the crowds drawn to Jesus' teachings. The common folk were encouraged to see 2 people like themselves honored as apostles, and this alone brought many faint-hearted believers into the kingdom. They also appreciated that it was 2 ordinary people like themselves acting as the official ushers, telling them what to do. Judas and James were in effect the expediters for the 12. They helped Philip with the supplies, took money to the families for Nathanael, and were always ready to help out as needed. Judas and James were also called Lebbeus and Thaddeus. They had no weak or strong points. There was nothing outstanding about either of them. They did not have the same mental power as the others. They knew it, and they were actually happy about it. The other apostles gave these 2 nicknames, all in fun, that pretty much meant that they were average, ordinary, and commonplace guys. The twins were good-natured and simple-minded helpers, but they were also kind, faithful, and generous. Everybody loved them. Jesus took them on as apostles because he did not look down on a lack of talent, just evil and making it sin. Judas and James were like many other fair-minded people on his worlds of time and space. When Jesus refused to allow a certain rich man to become an evangelist unless he sold his goods to help the poor, and yet the people saw that the twins were apostles, they were then certain that Jesus was no respecter of persons. For Jesus, a person's status on any of the material worlds of time and space means nothing. Faith is all that matters. Only the kingdom of heaven could be built on such a fragile human foundation, and the twins were proud, yet humbled, to be included. For Judas Alpheus, it was Jesus' dignity and humility that he admired the most. Jesus never tried to bring attention to himself, and that made a significant impression on Judas. For James Alpheus, it was Jesus' simplicity that he admired the most. While the twins could not understand Jesus, they did feel the love bonding them together. They did not benefit much intellectually from their time with Jesus, yet the spiritual experience they had was significant. They believed in Jesus, and they knew that they were sons of God with him in the kingdom of heaven. Judas and James Alpheus served faithfully to the end, despairing with the others through the dark days of the trial and crucifixion. They never lost faith in Jesus, and except for John Zebedee, they were the first to believe in his resurrection. But the twins never did understand what it meant by establishing the kingdom of heaven here on earth. When the other apostles went out to continue their work, Judas and James returned home to their families, went back to fishing, and were honored and blessed for their 4 years of service with Jesus, a Son of God and the Creator of our universe.